Hello, I'm Bob Trelogan, a retired Glasgow graduate. I hope to meet some of you at the conference in February. But here's a thought for you, hopefully to encourage you today. It's from Psalm 34, and I'll read from verse 4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him. He saved him from all his troubles. Now, I don't know whether any of you have had an experience where you felt in the midst of maybe some surgery or relationships, interaction, a sense of panic. Just wanted to get out of there, to run away. Well, I must admit it's something I've felt a few times during my time in practice. And perhaps the first one that comes to mind is when I was actually doing EMS, and I was observing the vet doing a spay on a large animal, and the ovarian pedicel had obviously slipped off. On the ligature on the ovarian pedicel had evidently slipped off, and the abdomen was filling with blood and pouring out down at the operating table, and I was in a panic. It's going to die, it's going to die. But the vet calmly enlarged the incision, grabbed a big wad of cotton wool, soaked up the blood, pushed the intestines aside, found the bleeding pedicel, clamped it and tied it off, stitched the dog up, and it was running around in the morning, albeit a bit anemic. But perhaps you've been in a situation where you've been given something which is new to you, perhaps more challenging than you've been prepared for, with very little support. That certainly was my experience as a young graduate working in my first practice. I was called out to a carving in the middle of the night because I was on duty, and found it to be a heifer that shouldn't have got in calf. The stockman had had a go and had failed. It seemed like an absolute oversize, and so I was getting them ready to do a cesarean. So I phoned up my boss to get him to come and supervise and even do the operation for me, but the sleepy voice informed me that oh, you've graduated, you've done the work, you know what to do, get on with it. So I managed to get my paravertebral anesthesia successfully and made the incision, found the uterus, but then I discovered it was rigid with this large calf and I couldn't exteriorize it. So I got the stockman to hold it as close as he could to the abdominal wall, and gingerly made a decision which I enlarged and managed to get hold of the calf and pull the calf out. As it was coming out, the stockman let go of the uterus, and so all this contaminated amniotic fluid gushed back into the peritoneal cavity, and my heart sank. I thought, that's its death sentence. I felt a great panic riding up in me. I just wanted to run away and go home to bed and forget all about it. But I put up a prayer, just like we read in the psalm. Lord, just in my heart this was, show me what to do, give me strength. And immediately a sense of peace came over me, and I knew I should just go through the motions of tidying it up and give them the prognosis. And so I got the uterus up into the wound, got someone to hold it, stitched up the uterus, the abdominal wall and the skin, and said it's going to die because it'll get massive peritonitis. I don't know whether they really believed me, but it did die within a week or so. And although my reputation was a little bit in doubt after that, I did end up doing another cesarean after getting some advice from my university tutor about how to exteriorize the uterus adequately. And got a very valuable Shaolin calf out of a cow, and my reputation soared. And I don't think there was any looking back after that. This reminds me, though, of the story of David in the Bible. When David was not yet king, was on the run from King Saul, who wanted to kill him because he was jealous, and David had run away to the enemy in the land of the Philistines, and had pretended to be an enemy of Israel, and wanted to go into the battle with the Philistines, who were attacking Israel, and they didn't trust him, and sent him back to his base, Ziklag. But when he got back to his base, he found that the camp had been plundered by the Amalekites. And we read in 1 Samuel chapter 30 that when David and his men came to Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. And then in verse 6, David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God. And just like my experience, he is the same God today. He gives us strength when we turn to him. And so that verse in Psalm 34, if I can find it again, is so relevant to this situation. Here we go. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. So if you're facing a situation like this today or in the future, remember that God is there to give you the strength you need to make wise decisions, to continue with the work that you have to do with confidence, and your face will never be ashamed, but will be radiant as you look to the Lord.